Welcome into another edition of Huber and Friends. I'm Jeremy Huber, and lucky enough to be joined on the show today by the czar of the playbook, the guy that seems to know everything about at least some football. Maybe that's backwards. It knows a little bit, all football knows a little something about all of it. It's Emory Hunt, one of my former and hopefully soon again broadcast partners, and just a good guy overall that knows a heck of a lot of football. Emory, thanks so much for joining us on this edition of Huber and Friends.
I'm glad to be a part of it, Jerry, man. Always a pleasure joining you to talk football and sports, man. It's a lot of people need to know our backstory. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Well, we're hoping to get into a lot of your backstory because it is amazing rise that you've had, and I think they say kind of it takes a lot of work to become an overnight success. It's kind of a little bit of your story too. I still like to start all these off with one question: do you remember how we met?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We met at a women's tackle football game, playoff game that was broadcast locally in DC on TV. DC Divas versus Boston Renegades. It was hot as hell in that stadium that was adjacent to FedEx Field. I remember I had jeans on, a white football game playing polo. And it was my first broadcast on TV, and you were a huge help in helping me navigate through that process. And even though we fought I forgot the humidity, it had to be 100%, but the weather was like 85 to 90 degrees and we were sweating that press box. So how could I forget the first time we met?
And I tell you what, it's actually there were a lot of greatness that day. BJ Cooperulis was the guy that kind of put us together. He was the mater, the overall guy with that. But Caitlin Mangum North, who does a lot of stuff, she's high up in Monumental Sports right now, and I believe Callie Brownson might have played in that game. The reason I know that Callie is the cousin of one of my good friends, but of course one of the assistants for the Cleveland Browns right now. So there was a lot of talent both in the booth and on the field that day. So but again, it was a great pleasure, and I think we kind of hit it off right away. And we'll get into some of that broadcasting story, but I wanted to go back to the beginning for you. You're a kid who is a proud guy from the Bayou, from New Orleans. What was it like your early days living down in the Big Easy?
New Orleans was fun, man, and pre-Katrina New Orleans was a blast, because it was the authentic New Orleans, where it was full of culture, full of excitement, full of music, full of different things that was happening, and the you had the everything kind of combining to blossom into what people now know of New Orleans, pre-Katrina. I keep saying that because I feel like it's different now than it was then. You had the start of Cash Money. I remember it was funny. Cash Money Records. So I
Mhm.
remember having the cassette tapes of early artists on Cash Money, and on the back of the cassette you had, for booking information, call this number, and you call the number just to see who this is, and baby Birdman would pick up the phone. It's like that's how local Cash Money Records was back then. And to see those dudes kind of really take off, it was my junior or senior year in high school. I think senior year in high school, when Juvenile jumped off the scene with the song, and that went nationwide. So when they signed a deal with Universal, you had all of these things coming up, and it was a cool time to be in New Orleans growing up.
When you were in New Orleans as a youngster, I've always got a little bit of you talk about the cultures with you've got that Cajun influence, there's an African American influence. Did you kind of get all that, and was going in through high school in those ages, were there cool parts about that? Were there drawbacks about that? How did it kind of play out in your mind?
It's that's a great question, because you don't know you're around it until you step away from it. Like, being in the culture, and then coming out here in New York City area, you don't realize how much French you know. And but you know what I'm saying? But being in New Orleans, you're inundated with it in an indirect way. You just think these are just words. You just think these are just sayings. Like, let's say les bon temps roulé, let the good times roll. You just think, oh, that's some cool, Cajun say, but you don't realize that's French. And then I went up to Montreal and I'm like, man, I recognize half these words. Like, what I'm saying? So, but that's part of it. The other part of it, on the other side, because you had the different cultures, um, I didn't realize how big of a Sicilian culture is in New Orleans. how big of a Spaniard culture, talking about from Spain, is in New Orleans. Obviously, you got the French, you got the Creole, you got the African, you got the, the Caribbean. I didn't realize how big of a Salvadorian influence we had in New Orleans until I got out here and realized how much stuff I recognize, how much stuff I've seen. And when you travel around, you're like, wow, this place looks like New Orleans. And then you realize, oh, this is a heavy, Spanish place. Or say, let's say I'm in the Ironbound in Newark. You're like, oh, that reminds me of New Orleans. Or you in the
Mm-hmm.
Sicilian part, you're like, oh wow, that reminds me of New Orleans. And you realize how that, around from the cultural side of New Orleans, even like when I remember this, and you don't realize this when you're a kid, you just see it as a field trip. And but as you get older, you realize, like, dang, so we were taking field trips to plantations,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not understanding. Obviously, we know what slavery was and what it is, but just the significance of being on a plantation and seeing it uh, from an exhibit standpoint, like, you just think, wow, this is a big old house, this is a large, property or whatnot, but you're not understanding the significance of it.
Sure.
Then you look at the cultural side of New Orleans. Everyone knows New Orleans for the voodoo and all that stuff like that, right? Marie Laveau and all those things. Um, and you don't real you as you get older, you realize how dope it is to be in New Orleans for Halloween. But you don't realize, like, how that could, to an outside person, it sounds crazy. And so I remember, I don't know if it's still there, but this was probably not, because people, nowadays, people are fragile. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We grew up battle tested. Like, you could fall out of a tree and you'd be fine. Like, these people fall now, they die. So so they probably don't have it anymore. But there was this haunted house called Chinchuba. Um, and it was like on a plantation style, like, atmosphere, like sugarcane fields, like
Mm-hmm.
you have this fog on, and so all natural. That part they didn't have to change.
Sure.
And then you're in this haunted house, and, like, let's say we're in there together, and you may lean against the wall, and now the wall flips on you, and you're in a whole nother section, and I don't see you till we both get out the haunted house. You know what I'm saying? So your adventure is different than mine. So it was just so you had all of that, and you don't realize, like, that's so uniquely New Orleans,
Sure.
and with all the different cultures and the different ways people coincided together to make what New Orleans was pre-Katrina. I keep stressing that, pre-Katrina.
Emory, want to go back a little bit because I heard a great story. I was listening to a couple podcasts you've been on before that got into your background. And I saw this great quote about, I believe, when you were 5 and you discovered football. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like and how you kind of got your chance getting into the game?
Yeah, my mom, got me into football. I remember, elementary school. I was, one of my best friends was Lee Mitchell, who still a good friend of mine to this day. Um, Lee, look at that picture, a young man, young sophisticated man. Me and Lee were outside, playing with toys, wrestling toys. I was a big
Mhm.
wrestling guy growing up. Like, not growing up, but up until I was like 7 or so. But
Sure.
everything was always wrestling, from birthday cakes to, I had the wrestling ring.
Well,
I had the
JYD was big down there, the Junkyard Dog.
JYD was big. Jake the Snake was
Yep.
big. I was a big Ricky the Dragon Steamboat fan. Um, so you had all these toys. They had the AWA toys, the WWF toys, um, this was before WCW became a thing. So it was just AWA
Mhm.
and WWF. I remember playing with toys, and Lee's mom asked if I was gonna sign, she was gonna sign me up for football. And I kind of watched it, and it was like, oh, it's cool. Yeah, and my mom asked it, do I want to play? I was like, yeah, I'll play, no problem. If Lee's playing, and then people I went to elementary school with were playing, I'm like, why not? And so once I started to play for Pontchartrain Park at the time, before I moved on to Milne Playground, it was like I got immersed in it. Like, I love the competitiveness of it, the strategy of it, the testing your skill set against another person, another kid. And it's like, man, I could, and the social praise you got for being the football player was something that it was gratifying. It made you want to be better at the sport. If you were good at one thing, be good at what you're good at, right? And so if I was good at this and I like the praise I'm getting for it, I'm gonna just continue to do it and try to master it. So that replaced wrestling, and I became inundated with all that. Like I'm talking about from same thing, birthday cakes, video games, football cards. Like I had a massive football card collection. And this was back then. I had NFL football cards, Canadian football cards. I had USFL football cards. I was all in on football stuff, so I became locked in on watching every Saints game. Watching all these college games on Jefferson Pilot Sports,
Hmm.
um, and just recording games to watch later, just to relive the moment. So, and that passion for me started at like 5 years old, and it has carried on throughout my career.
Following up on that, Emory, do you feel like that you have an obsessive personality in the sense that once you lock onto a topic, you just kind of jump into it? Like you said, there was wrestling, then became football, and then became, I believe I've heard some of you things you've said where you got really into the website and all these things, almost like you had to conquer it, and it became an obsession to you in your mind.
That's another great observation. I would say that's true because once I found something that I loved and it was truly passionate about, I always wanted to see it through, and I always want to excel at it, and I always want to know more about it. So, let's say, for instance, if right now, this was something that I remember listening to rap and being a huge rap fan. Um, and I remember loving the song "Ain't No Half Stepping" by Big Daddy Kane. And I remember, like, obviously I had that "Long Live the Kane" album, which had all those classics on it. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm listening to it, and I remember just having this immense rap collection. We all did this, especially of our generation, where you had the radio in your room and the song come on. You already had the tape with the sticker on top, the tape on top of the paper, toilet paper in it. So as soon as you heard on the radio, boom, record. You know what I'm saying? So you was locked in, right? And so I remember going to college my freshman year, bringing my cassette tapes that I had. It was like, dog, why don't you get CDs? I was like, nah, because they don't make these songs. I hadn't seen the CDs of these songs at the time. You remember CDs were like 15.99. So to a
Mhm.
college kid, the cassettes were like 7.99. That's always going to be a better option. That's just
Yeah.
economics, like, right? So, um, but the point I was making was I remember liking Big Daddy Kane a lot, and then my junior year, the summer of my junior year to senior year in college, I'm still listening to Long Live the Kane. And there was this, I was like, man, I just like how he's put these words together. And this is when you can go and look up on the internet, which was still, is not
Hmm.
how we know it now. You go up on cdnow.com, and it was like Big Daddy Kane. And it was like, damn, I didn't know he released the album. So now I went to the CD exchange store where you can get old CDs for like $1 and bought all his albums. So like so that became a habit. Like, oh, I like Slick Rick. Let me go buy all his albums. Even though I heard this one song that allowed me to go buy. So to your point, if I like something, I'm gonna go all in it, and it kind of helps you focus on the task at hand, which helps you in your career to where it and to the point it even helps me when I scout talent. Like I don't jump around from position to position. If I'm watching quarterbacks, I want to watch all the quarterbacks before I move to another position. So that's a good observation. I think that is part of my obsession, even with these doggone mini helmets that people see when I'm on camera. They're like, "Oh, that's cool. He's able to switch the helmets up with what he talks about," but they don't know I have every helmet. You know what I'm saying? So once I find something, I'm locked in. I'm all in.
Emory, you played in the New Orleans area in high school. I know you would end up going back there as a coach later on, but of course, a huge part of your personality, I think, is your time in Lafayette playing for University of Louisiana. Louisiana now, I believe it was Louisiana Lafayette at the time. The Raging Cajuns, everybody knows about them, and I've heard you talk about that time. You go there. What's it like to be a Raging Cajun?
It was a great experience. We weren't the best team. Uh, we were the laughing stocks. We weren't UL Monroe, but we were, we were right there. We were cousins. You know what I'm saying? And like we were one and the same. And when I got to UL, we were still University of Southwestern Louisiana.
Wow. Okay.
So USL, which people used to clown and say, "Oh, University of Slow Learners," right? So, um, but it was fun, man, and it what made me appreciate it more when while I was there, but also after I left was the community of the Raging Cajun community. It's a nice small enclave of Acadiana because on the left side of it is McNeese, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying, in Lake Charles area, and on the right side of it, south southern right side of it, you have Nichols and Thibodeau, and then north right side you have Hammond and southeastern Louisiana. Then east you obviously have Tulane and New Orleans. So you really are, nestled, and Acadiana is its own thing. Like the music, the people, and those people out there truly bleed vermilion and white. Like
Mhm.
it may not have shown up. I remember making a joke, and I was dead serious. Like I'm watching it. Like now, the college football 25 video game is out, and because you're so passionate about football, it kind of I understand why you need that game to release now because you got to get the youth, you know, locked into being football fans. And that's how it got me because I was playing all these games. I was dreaming of like running out the tunnel and just seeing the pageantry, seeing all the big crowds. You're watching these football movies like the program, and then going my senior in high school, Waterboy came out, which always had a direct tie. Like, yo, this is funny. This sounds like the people that I'm of the place where I'm going to, right? And and you just seeing all. Then you get out there for the first game. I'm like, yo, where the hell all the people at? Like, why nobody come to the game? Like, I'm thinking every game in college was packed because it's all you see on TV. Not realizing you're probably watching the bigger games. But I thought every game was packed until I got out there. I was like, yo, I could hear every comment. Like, what I'm saying? I could hear conversations. That's how little people was there. But now you look at, but those people would. It's funny because what I see now from the Raging Cajun fan base is what the potential was always there to be. So it's dope to see the fans like be rabid, traveling, trolling online, other people. Like I love it. I love seeing it. But knowing out there, even though the fans weren't coming to the games, um, or we weren't winning or having success, we could talk about we as an Acadiana. We could talk about our Raging Cajuns. You can't say nothing about it. I always felt that that was something that embodied Acadiana, and those people really. Now I saw the passion, and I saw the crowds, and I saw all the fanfare for the basketball team and the baseball team because they was winning. You know what I'm saying? And it was cool to see those people, see how passionate like Raging Cajun decked out everything. And so now that it has, jumped on the football side, every other athlete, every other sport there, from baseball, softball was always a killer.
Mhm.
Women's basketball became good. The volleyball team was excellent. Track and field was excellent. Um, we just stunk. And so, but the Raging Cajun fan base is like any other, is just like the nickname. Um, there's a bunch of bulldogs, there's a bunch of wildcats. There's only one Raging Cajun. That's what makes the whole place, the whole area unique.
Emory, after you were done at Louisiana, you end up, I believe, going back to your alma mater in high school as a coach. And I think there were some maybe hard learned lessons for you there. What was it like going back and getting into the coaching game and doing it at a place where folks knew you?
You're right, man. It was a learning curve, and it was an adjustment. Because when I went back, it's 4 years later. So if you were a senior at the high school when I was there, you was a freshman. Or because our high school was from 7th to 12th grade, the high school I went to, you could have been an eighth grader,
Mhm.
right? But you were there when I was there. And so you remember me being the football star. Not only that, but you also remember, you see my picture. You walk past it every day. You got to go to the locker room in a common area where everybody hangs out is the basement that we call the basement. But in real life, it's the first floor, right?
Mhm.
Um, but in the basement, everybody just hang out, congregate is right by the cafeteria. There was the Mech Main Wall of Fame. My picture is like there. So you remember me playing, you were at some of the games, and now you see my picture there, and now I'm coaching you.
Mhm.
And so it's like man, this. So I had all that going in, but I wasn't the type to think I was way up here. But the coaching part was something that I hadn't done. I just thought you were coached, and then you think you can then subsequently coach. So going out there and asking kids to do certain things that you did, not realizing that you did it because that's you, and you actually have to teach kids and understand now everybody is at the same level. Even within those 4 years, society had changed. You know, we grew up when everybody was outside, where being inside was punishment, and so now in that short 4 year span, more people were inside, playing video games, and that's how they grew up as kids. And I couldn't understand that until later. And it was like, having to really, you know, yes, if I tell this dude go run a flare route, he may not know what I'm talking about, b- based off me saying it. But if I showed him Madden, which how he grew up, he would understand it. And that's the part that really, like, I had to understand it. Even from a coaching, um, like it was tough, going back to coach with the guy that coached you. Not from, Coach Hill is my guy. Me and Coach Hill talk all the time. He checks up on me all the time. He tells me I'm proud. He's how proud he is of me, uh, doing my thing. Him and Coach Mike, but it was tough because you may have ideas, but you don't know your place yet as a coach, and you can't go out there and just say, "Yeah, okay, well, let's do this. We should do this." Like, you haven't earned that right yet. And I had to humble myself and understand that like there's a process. He's the head coach. You got to understand it's his call. And so you going through all those things as a young coach, trying to figure out your role, how to be a good teammate in terms of coaching, a staff member, how to teach, how to coach, how to, who to you could kind of, and I wasn't a screamer. I'm still not a screamer,
Mhm.
but who you can kind of push a little bit harder, who you have to put your arm around. Like all of those things as a 20, this was oh 03, so a 22-year-old, you're trying to figure that out. Um, and that was the adjustment. Like, I spent more time learning that from my uh staff member, Coach Devin Jones, who's a good friend of mine. We talk all the time, and we used to sit, because I used to teach. I was a paraprofessional at the elementary school that was down the street from the high school. So I'd go there and help out with him as a paraprofessional. Then we go coach, and then on some days I'd substitute teach at McMain as well, at
Mhm.
my high school. Um, but as a paraprofessional, all I'm doing is sitting there watching this one kid all day. So I'm just drawing up plays. I'm drawing up plays, bringing them to Coach Jones, and we sitting on the whiteboard, talking through strategy and breaking down film. And that's another part of the development of, like, oh wow, I know how to attack this opponent we're facing. You could spotlight the vulnerability, you could spotlight the weak points and all that stuff. So I think that coaching kind of gave me that, hey man, like, the game is bigger than you. Look at things from a 10,000-foot level, understand the big picture, and then formulate your thoughts and your process that way. It'll help make you better in the long run.
Emory, before we kind of get into your story as a broadcaster, one thing that I know, obviously, even from you bringing it up earlier, any Louisianan, any native Louisianan, Katrina is always part of their story. How did it affect you and your family?
Everything. I lost everything. So anything you see from me picture wise was something that I got from somebody else, because I didn't have any photos. So it's almost like from in 2005, I had to hit reset on everything. Like, I
Mhm.
was, day one. So because everything prior to that, I lost. So there's no pictures of my childhood. There's no pictures of me in college. There's no newspaper articles, because even the Times Picayune got destroyed too. So
Mhm.
everything that would have been on microfiche is gone. So everything from my history was wiped out. Um, so certain things I was able, my mom like was able to save my jersey and my helmet. So those are some things, like anything that you see that I have came from somebody else. So and you're thinking about this as you're, processing everything. Like, so I don't have a problem with everybody like having their phones out taking pictures or taking video, because it's like you need that. We didn't have that option um in '05. Like, we still, I think digital cameras maybe have just came out. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? But prior to that, everything was Polaroid, get the photos developed. You know what I'm saying? You stash them, you hold them, you give many copies, and you write on the back of them, you give them to somebody, right?
Yep.
So you had all that stuff, and you just thinking like, damn. And I'm thinking of, I evacuated by an old teammate of mine, his family, the Johnsons. Um, Shout out to Lawrence Johnson Sr., Natalie Johnson, the wife, my teammate Lawrence Johnson Jr., his brother, Langston Johnson. Like, great family. They live in Greenville, Mississippi. It's about 80 miles north of Jackson. So I evacuated up there. And I'm thinking I'm only going for like 5 days, right? At best. So I packed like, button up shirts, dress shirts, ties, DVDs, CDs. And I remember I had this big box of photos. I had this big binder about maybe about this size of newspaper articles and football photos. Um, and my mom was like, I don't know why I didn't just put this in the car. She was like, well, put it on top of your put it on your top shelf in the closet, because if the water gets in, it'll just, you'll be fine. I'm like, I got a king size bed in this apartment. I just sit on top of the bed, like water ain't gonna get that high,
Mhm.
right? So did that. Obviously, the water got, and had I put all of that, first of all, had I packed it with me, I don't know why I didn't. Like, it wasn't like there was a weight limit, right?
Yeah.
But had I put it up top, I would have still had it, right? It would have got saved. Naturally, everything that was below that was wiped out. And so just like, dang, man, like all of those memories. Now you just kind of have to bank on your memory. Um, and it shaped me moving forward, because if people notice that I'm always kind of, hey man, let's either I'm in the moment, I'm not taking photos of us hanging out because I'm locked into those core memories, or if I have somebody take a picture, it's not just for me, it's just for everybody else. Like, because I
Mhm.
need to have those photos, because I don't have anything from, I didn't do a good job then of taking photos, because that was part of our era. You probably take one photo of the night, and then the rest is just up to memory. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? And folklore. And that's the one aspect I've changed since Katrina. But that's how it has changed me, in terms of like making sure you do take pictures, making sure, hey man, if you are mentioned on this website, screen capture it and save it, because that's important. Like, I would love to go back and look through some of my old articles that people wrote about me, or interviews, and it's just like, dang man, I don't have that. And so I'm never gonna be mad at the, like, obviously there's levels. If someone's taking like 1,000 selfies, like cool, getting cold, each food, but I'm not gonna be upset if folks taking photos.
Well, always listen to Mama is what I got out of that. If you
Oh,
had listened to Mama, you would have had everything. Emory Hunt joining me on Huber and Friends. Emory, I think you talked about it. There's kind of a delineation a little bit in your life pre and post Katrina, really. I believe 2005 is when you headed up north to New Jersey. What was the impetus to go up into above the Mason Dixon line?
I had a choice. The company I was working for, I was a recruiter for an allied health program. Bryman College, Corinthian College was the company that owned Bryman College. And I had just won an award. It's funny how life works, because I was getting ready to leave the company anyway, right? Because uh, football was pulling at me. I had applied and gotten interviews and had two offers to go coach in college.
Mhm.
One was a GA. Both were GA opportunities, but paid. One was paid. One was like the stipend or whatnot. Um, One was a FCS school, and one was I think either D2 or NAIA program. One was in Tennessee. One was in Nebraska. And so I was like, man, I think I'm gonna take one of these opportunities because all I used to do in the break room at the job was draw up plays because I had left coaching because everybody was like, "Oh man, you need to get a real job. You went to school for this degree in communications and you coaching. Like, won't you get something like?" So I was, you buy in. So I became. So I took the corporate job, right? And I remember thinking like, "Oh, this is easy." They gave me a laptop, which was big back then. Like, oh, I
Hmm.
got a laptop, um, and I get to work on the road. I don't have an office. I don't have to be in the office. Um, and so I remember I was just, I had to speak at high schools. So that was the job. Like, go speak at high schools, recruit students to come to the school. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm young enough. Like, I can still relate to the high school student. I just left the high school, from coaching or whatnot. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking I'm doing a solid job. I remember the dude that hired me, rest in peace, Doug Lockwood. He came over while I was sitting in one of the break rooms. He was like, he had sent me an email. He's like, man, you seen this? And I opened it up, and it was the rankings throughout the company. So it was like 325 or so recruiters. And I was like, damn, I'm dead last. And he was like, I said, yeah, man, you got to fix that. And not in a job threatening. He was like, he said, I thought you said you was good at this stuff. He said, you killed the interviews. Like, how you did last? And I was like, you know what? Say less. So going back to your earlier point, that's all I focused on. So the following year, I'm number one in the entire company over like 40 something schools, 100 something schools across the country. So now the company awards that year were in Greece. And so they moved it from Greece to San Diego. I'm like, damn, I kind of wanted to go to Greece. And then so I'm like, all right, cool. I said, so the plan was to go and get my trophy, get the free trip, quit, and then take one of these coaching jobs. So
Hmm.
I go out there to San Diego, and one of the guys from the other side of the company, the automotive side, was like, "Oh man, we like the work you did. Like, it's crazy how far ahead out in front you were. You could have really did nothing from the middle of the year on and still been number one." And I was like, "It's like, man, would you come over to the auto side?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think about it. Yeah, give me your number. I'll call it." Blah blah. Doing good and well. I was taking one of these jobs. Like, I was just being nice out there, right?
Hmm.
So I get back to New Orleans. Um, I want to say like 2 weeks later, Katrina happens.
Hmm.
And then now I'm in Mississippi. I'm scrambling, and I'm like, oh, I have this number in my wallet. Let me call the dude, see what's up. And he was like, yeah, we would love to have you on this side. This time I had no leverage because I had no options. Right? It was
Sure.
either just what the hell I'm gonna do. You know what I'm saying? Once I realized how dire the situation was, he was like, we got two options. We got an opportunity in Southwest Missouri or New York City. I was like, I don't even know where Missouri at. So I like New York. I'm a city dude, so I am on my way. And so when they flew me up there to look for the apartment and all the stuff like that, so I was like, "Yo, why would nobody want this territory?" He was like, "People are afraid to recruit in the city." I'm like, "That's crazy!" Like, just by sheer numbers of 12 million people in this small metropolitan Jersey, New York, tri-state area, not even tri-state,
Hmm.
Jersey, like Northeast Jersey, the five boroughs, Long Island, and you know Southern Connecticut. Like, that's where
Sure.
all the people are. Like, I could still be, I could kill this number. Um, and so that's what I did. I moved. That's what made me move up this way. Moved up here and became consistently number one, number two in the company, still winning awards like crazy. But football was always pulling at me, and that's ultimately what led me to start football game plan in '07.
Well, I like that you make the transition easy for me, Emory. As I wanted to ask you, and of course you're in the Big Apple, so again, it seems like media opportunities are more there. But you kind of go your own way. What was the idea behind starting a football game plan?
2006. So I'm 2 years into the on the other side of the company, but been with the company since '04. Um, I interviewed for some head coaching jobs out here, high school, and I remember I got down to the wire with this one school in Jersey City, and the AD was like, "Well, I would, you can come coach on the staff, but I want to hire, a friend of mine that I know." I'm like, "Nah, bump that. I'll stay recruiting." You know what I'm saying? I don't want leave the good job to be an assistant. Like,
Mhm.
no. So I was like, man, I need to, you know, fix this football fix that I have. This is the second time I interviewed for a head coaching job. I did it before, right out of college. Came down to me and another guy, and the principal was actually a Raging Cajun grad. So I thought I had that joint locked up. And so she was like, "Man, we loved you. We don't want to lose you. Want you to be an assistant?" I'm like, "Nope." And then, as fate would have it, we had them on the schedule the first game of the season, where I ended up my old high school I coached. So we blew them out the water. And she came over, she said, "Oh, it's good to see you, coach, your assistant over. Why you coming?" Like, because I know these people. I went to the school. I said I should be the head coach, because the part I was coaching, like running backs and special teams, is the reason why we won the game. We had like 2 punt return, touchdowns, and my backs, all of them went off. But in '06, I'm like, all right, well, I'm done trying to, settle for assistant. I want to be a head guy, whatever. But that year it was the Vince Young, Reggie Bush draft, and
Mhm.
everything I was watching on TV were people saying um, Vince Young couldn't play quarterback in the NFL, and I'm like, we all as a country just watched the greatest college football game ever, and you mean to tell me that dude that we saw take over that game in that crucial situation can't do what we watching these bumbling mediocre quarterbacks do in the NFL? Like, there's no way. And so instead of arguing on the phone back and forth with my friend about the same stuff that we all watching and we agree, like, man, we need to do something. We need to start a website. You know, yeah, let's do that. And then it was like, how do we start a website? You know what I'm saying? Like, so we had to go through the whole process of, doing that and figuring out the logo and all the stuff that goes into creating a website. But it started in '06, March of '06, because of the whole Vince Young, arguing. The dude ends up going winning rookie of the year and has a crazy rookie season with the Titans. And then that led to us ultimately launching in '07. But it was that was the impetus for football game plan. So had people in the media been talking how we talk now in terms of how we go about looking at prospects, and we probably would have never had the idea to start football game. But I'll probably be coaching somewhere now.
Emory, I think one thing with football game plan that's pretty cool is you guys were ahead of the curve by going to video, not maybe doing articles, those type of things. Why did you think video was the way to go?
Great question. It was a couple reasons, because that group that we started in '07 with wasn't the same group in '08. It became solo. So it was just me running football game plan. So now pumping out articles and pumping out, editing these articles, finding the right photos without stealing them off Google, all that stuff, right? I was like, bro, this is becoming a hassle. I have a degree in communications, and I used to use YouTube at the time to see funny videos, because at the time it was very limited in what YouTube had, like funny cat videos or whatnot, old rap videos, and like, oh, this is pretty dope. I was like, oh, I could. What if I just? It's easy for me to say what I want to say, than to write all these articles, and I can get all of this done in an efficient time, as opposed to writing articles, which feels like it takes an hour or so. I can get, you know, 13 videos done in an hour, 5-minute videos. I could say it's easy for me to give my keys to victory and pick a winner. And so I was like, okay, I could use YouTube, but I need camera equipment. But my degree is in broadcasting, my minor is in theater. So I kind of knew how to set stuff up. I knew lighting, I knew mics, I knew cameras. So there's this great place out here called B&H. So I went there and I was like, I need a camera, I need a tripod. I knew everything that I needed. You know what I'm saying, to make it look presentable. Um, and that was part one. And then part two was like, okay, we gotta wear suits. Keep in mind, I had been a professional since '04, and this is now '09.
Mhm.
I hadn't had a suit, so I had to go and buy suits. I had ties already, um, and then I was like, okay, what else we need? Well, we need to make the set look. It would be dope. We had the helmets to show the matchups we're talking about. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go get the helmets, and then I was like, okay, I can't just get a handful of teams. I got to get the whole NFL. And then it's like, man, we talking college football. I kind of got to get, all the FBS teams, you know what I'm saying? And so I did all that. So, I got everything I needed before I even started the actual recording. So I did a couple test runs to see what it would look like in my apartment in Newark. Like, how can I set up the camera to where I had blackout curtains to cover this part of the bookshelf. I'm in a house now, but this was back then. I had to cover that part up so I could set the chalkboard up. So it just everything looked professional for 2009 because nobody was doing it uh, like that in 2009 that had a professional feel to it. And my whole thought process was get out here. You have the background in broadcasting, so you know how to set up things from a production standpoint. You speak for a living, so it's gonna sound different than everybody else. Um, you're gonna be able to articulate your points, and you can make it look nice. And you can make it look like obviously it's not gonna look like it looks on TV, but it's gonna look close to it. If that's TV, then yours gonna look at least cable access, which will still be better than what was on YouTube at the time. And so we did that, and people caught on to it. Our viewers start to grow consistently because nobody was out there doing it until you started becoming consistent with it. We was pumping out videos like 30 videos a week. But again, so I was filming these things early in the morning before I had to go out and recruit, and
Mm-hmm.
then come back late at night, later that evening, and edit these videos, which wasn't much editing because all I did was just like it was the same format each video. Welcome to football game plan. I'm Emory Hunter's the playbook. Boom, 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 boom. Keys to victory. Be sure to check us out on YouTube. And so I was doing the same format for each one. So all I had to do was just put my lower third on and then hit um export to YouTube. And the consistency of the videos we pumped out and how we were replacing these videos. So let's say, for instance, Jeremy, if I was doing a Bengals Browns preview individually, because that was the other point too. We like you watch a 4-hour NFL pregame show. Say if you're a Bengals or Browns fan, they may spend 30 seconds talking about that game, and the analysis would be, "Oh, we're gonna take the Browns because they playing at home." Like you waited 4 hours to watch them talk about your team, and that's the analysis. So we was giving everybody 5 minutes of good sound, back and forth analysis, keys to victory, all that stuff, right? 5 minutes. You won't get that anywhere. And we'll take that video, post it in Bengals and Browns message boards, because at the time message boards was a
Sure.
thing, Twitter wasn't a thing. So now these fans eating it up, like, man, this guy is talking about, I don't care if he picked our team to lose, but I like the format. I like what he's saying. It makes sense. And next thing you know, they're asking for the next video. Or if you do anything that's Bengals related, draft grades wise or anything, it goes, you have a place to put it. So now you have these 32 different fan bases all checking out your channel, all these college football fan bases checking out your channel, because where else can you get 5 minutes of Eastern Michigan versus Ball State, you
Yeah.
know and so and exactly where to put it. And so therefore people don't feel like you're spamming their site with videos that ain't pertaining to the site you're on.
Sure.
And that the message boards, the format of our videos really help boom us into uh what we became known as the go-to place for everything football.
Emory, your website would eventually lead you down the road of actually broadcasting games as a color commentator. And I know that obviously you're articulate, obviously you know football, but how much of a culture shock was it for you to jump into that arena where you have to make these really good points, but only maybe have 15 to 20 seconds to do it?
It wasn't as tough as I thought it was gonna be because of how I was already doing videos on YouTube, right? Where I was trying to make things time efficient for me to be able to do these videos while working a full-time job as a recruiter. And I was doing, so when I got into the booth with you, I knew I never was a wordy guy anyway. I never just ramble on, anything. I was able to just make my points and move on. And it was great working with you because I used to listen to you on Sirius XM. I remember when we first met, I was like, man, I'm Jeremy Huber. I used to do that, right? And so it's like I remember I was like, so okay. I remember working with you the first time. I'm like, oh, this is easy. I'll just say what I need to say. You was the perfect teacher. It was like once before we got started, like, hey, once the play breaks the huddle, I'll carry the play. Once the whistle is blown to end the play, you have it from there. So when they break the huddle again, I'm a good teammate. I'm a good listener. I'm coachable. I was like, cool. I'll just wrap up what I because you don't have to go over the top with that. We're all watching the game and you just say what you see and then you hand it off to back to the play-by-play guy. So it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. The nervousness was something that you have anytime you do something new. I remember being nervous when you're seeing the okay, you did the test run and now you see the bump for the intro, you see the drone shot come in, then here you go, like, we're live at, and you like, oh man, here it comes. It's just, you remember this as a former football player, how you felt the first play of a game, the butterfly, even though you've done this 1,000 times, but it's always the same butterflies. But that was the only thing I had to get used to, is like making sure I speak clearly. I don't let my fast talking Southern accent take over. I make sure I get my point across. Don't curse, and then you you make it work.
Emory, you did so much. You started writing for the Athletic, did stuff for them. You did your own shows for college, really small college on Next Level Sports, kind of a one man band thing, but getting a lot of good information out there, raising your profile some more. And eventually, you get a break with CBS Sports. How did that come about for you?
It's funny how life works, man, because from the time we met and we did the games to you know CBS Sports, you mentioned I wrote for the Athletic in addition to all the stuff. I never stopped doing football game plan stuff, and I was just getting better and better at it, to where football game plan was starting to become. Even before that, I was getting Game Plus Network was using. Um, I had to deal with Game Plus Network where I was producing
Mhm.
the football game plan show, which was a variety of show. Then we broke that up to, okay, we got an NFL show and we have a draft show, and a betting show, right? And we had shows on there, then we had shows on Next Level Sports, but it was all because I had of how I was setting up my videos. My stuff was TV ready.
Mhm.
Little did I know that, but because I was doing the same videos the same way, and the production got better as I got better equipment, um, and so it was just like I was comfortable. And I remember, but I also wanted more. I remember hitting up a guy from another network on LinkedIn, and at the time, this was probably 2014 um or 50. It was probably 14. And I remember hitting them up with, at the time, my demo reel, which at that point had like a lot better clips of my YouTube stuff. I had started to go out to college games and do post game recaps for the YouTube channel,
Mhm.
or go to all-star games and interview players. So I thought, like, yeah, I got some stuff. I had Georgetown clips from when we did games at Georgetown. So I'm like, I got some stuff now. I'm ready. So I sent this to him, and then he replied back, which was I appreciate, and said you're about 4 years away from being on national TV. So I would suggest go to a small town, work your way up there, and keep at it. I'm like, at first I took it as like a shot. I'm like, damn, like I'm watching these major
Yeah.
networks. I know I'm better than this dude. I know I'm better than that dude. And lo and behold, bro, um, 4 years later is when I got the opportunity to be a guest on CBS. And it was funny how it worked. I don't know how they got my number or email, but I had an email from one of the producers and said, hey, we've been checking some of your stuff out on YouTube. Would you mind being a guest on Cannell and Bell show? It was Danny Cannell and Raja Bell. They had a podcast together on then what was new, CBS Sports HQ. I didn't know. I thought
Mhm.
So when I heard CBS, I told everybody, like, I'm be on CBS. Like, I'm thinking it's like TV. I'm thinking CBS Sports Network. I didn't know what the hell streaming was or CBS Sports HQ. I was like, man, it's Danny Cannell and it's Raja Bell. These two big names, like, because I'm a big fan of both. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so I did the hit. It was cool. You know what I'm saying? It was via Skype. And I went to the gym. And by the time I got out the gym, about an hour later, I had like 5 missed calls, like 4 missed emails. And it was like, hey man, it was the producers. Like, they loved you, man. They want to know if you want to make this a consistent thing on a Thursday morning at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock. It was very early, but I was like, I'm up watching film, working on football game plan stuff. I'm like, sure. So we did that for the whole season. And then it started to, hey, the guys at CBS Sports HQ, the news part of the sports desk part of it,
Mhm.
wanted you to come on every Friday morning. You able to do 2 days? I'm like, yeah, sure. So we did that for 2 years, 2018, 2019. And then in the pandemic year 2020, when while we sitting at home, I remember I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. And it was the guy in charge of talent at CBS Sports HQ. Say, hey man, I gotta say, we've had you on our shows for 2 years, and everybody loves you over there. The producers, the talent, they love that you bring unique takes, but it's fun. It's like, we want to make this thing official. Would you want to join CBS Sports? I was like, yep. And so obviously we worked through. I get to still do my football game plan stuff and all the stuff that I'm doing, but now I'm officially CBS Sports, and that happened in 2020. But the process started in 2018. 4 years to the day of the dude from another network telling me I was 4 years away. Then I go back and look at the stuff I sent him. I was like, bro, there's no way in hell I was ready to be like, knowing how I sound and how I speak and how I articulate my points and how I do stuff now. I wasn't even close to being ready. Then ego had me thinking I was ready because I'm popular on YouTube,
Sure.
but TV is a different animal. And understanding the growth that happened from 14 to 18 and from 18 to 20, I'm like, damn, like,
What
le-
did you change?
I became more, it's funny because I think I became more confident in the time I had, because I was still operating even then under the guise of, man, you got to get these out quick. You got to
Yeah.
get these out and post. So I'm speaking fast. I'm running through it. I'm not. And so I noticed from 14 to 18, my videos started to change a little bit. Like, I started to add more. Like, okay, I got a little time, man. Let me, instead of just doing straight 3 keys to victory and getting let me add a whiteboard segment to it.
Sure.
Let me add some film breakdown to it to show my depth and analysis. And each time you do those things and you do them separately, let's say if I did all whiteboard segments and if I did all film breakdown segments, that requires different speaking, different
Sure.
speech patterns. You're teaching now, you're walking people through it. So you're learning the different, dictations you need. You're doing different, is different than sitting in front of the camera speaking, um, which I also became better at in terms of like how to pace myself, how to not sound like I'm rushing, because who was pushing me out of my own place to get this
Yeah.
video out? Like, the video comes out when it's ready. And so my videos became much more polished and even more so TV ready. And I stopped chasing, and ultimately they came and found me. And so, because at the time I was doing my own thing on YouTube, very popular. I had the TV shows on Game Plus Network. I had 3 nights a week of TV shows on there. I was writing for The Athletic. I was doing stuff for other outlets in terms of,
Mhm.
like, creating different things. I was calling games. So I was good, from for what it was, for building my own platform and being my own thing. I was good. And then, so I had lost track of trying to get to the major network. And then it happened. I was like, oh yeah, I'll hop on, not realizing
Yeah.
how much prepared I was and how much growth I had and how many, you got those, indirect 10,000 hours of doing this thing to where you became ready for when you got that opportunity.
Emory, we've taken you way past the time I told you, but we're buddies, so it's okay. But I had one I got to get in. I think one thing I remember when I first met you, there were a lot of the polo shirts that said football game plan, and now you've kind of changed a little bit. Again, you're wearing your World League of American Football shirt today, but you are known for those colorful suits you wear. Where did that idea come from to kind of put a little pizzazz in the wardrobe?
It's funny because I credit my longtime girlfriend. Like she has done that's a fantastic color, by the way. She has done an awesome job. Yeah, well, because here's the thing: when she met me, I was still doing the videos in my apartment in Newark. Um, my standard suits were like blue, gray, brown, black. I didn't deviate. I didn't even have a pocket square. I thought me being flashy was using a different multicolored tie.
Mhm.
And so she challenged me to say, "Hey, well, try this color." I was like, "Ah, I don't know, man. I kind of like these colors from this store because I know what I'm gonna get." So I tried one, got good feedback. I was like, "All right, that kind of works." Now, she's like, "Try this pocket square." I was like, "Ah." So I tried a pocket square, got good feedback. Oh, people on the video, so it was like, "Oh, you're using pocket square? That's pretty cool." Like this. So I was like, "Huh." So all right, cool. So now I started to kind of be a little bit more open to trying different things. And then when I started to go to, and this is a part that I miss, because in between the whole 14 to getting on CBS, I had started getting credentialed and approved to go to Giants
Mhm.
practices and subsequently covering the games. So now I'm in the press box, the best dressed there, to where people kept complimenting me on my outfits. And these weren't like what you see me wear now.
Yeah,
These were just, I was just dressing better than what everybody else is dressing like, right? So I was
sure.
like, man, I'm getting compliments. Like, let me keep doing like this. This is dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, so now I became more cognizant of the style of suits, the colors, what works with my complexion, what I can, what works well on camera, what because if you know I don't have any pinstripe suits, um, what works best for my style. I don't have any double breasted because I feel like I'm not tall enough or lean enough. I look like I'll be stuffed in a straight jacket in a double breasted suit. So grow and not and then also understanding this is a visual product in terms of television. It's a visual medium. I know now whatever gets people to watch, you just want them watching. Some people may tune in to see what I'm saying. Some people may tune in to watch what I'm wearing. But at the end of the day, you're tuning in. And when you combine the dope stuff that I say, combined with the dope outfits I wear, it's a win-win. So that's the whole that's the genesis of it. But now you can't stop me now because I know I have eyes on me and people kind of waiting to see what I'm gonna wear. Oh, I'm gonna step out. And best believe, and I'm not saying this as an arrogant person, because I'm not arrogant, right? I am the most humblest person, right? Like I hate when people say that, right? But I know I have single-handedly changed how folks dress on TV. Like prior to me popping out on the scene, everybody was just doing your standard things. And they made fun of the Clyde Frasers of the world, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now, since I pop out, and now everybody want to, wear colorful suits. They want to put together outfits, but I was doing that first. I was a trendsetter, amongst
Maybe
other things.
maybe I need to get you some help from your tailor. Emory, before we wrap it up, I got to ask you. We talk about you and taking on challenges and how you've done it with aplomb and really gotten after it. A couple new challenges in the past year for you when it comes to what you've been doing on air. You started doing some sideline reporting for CBS and some of their games, but also you have picked up doing a little bit of one man show play by play in color for a European league. Can you quickly tell us about those and how you've kind of had to attack a new thing for you on the field for football and for broadcasting?
If you're not growing, you're dying. Period. And so when CBS hit me up last year and with the idea of being a sideline analyst, it wasn't even a sideline reporter. It was like, hey, they were trying to, they envision a role like how the late great Tony Saragusa was doing where he was the third person of the group. And I was like, yeah, I'll be open to it. It's a middle of the week game. I can still do my game on Saturday. Why not? Like, this would be a fun challenge. I'm always up for a challenge in terms of growth within this industry, and I had never done that. And once you do it, you become more appreciative of those that do it. You realize how hard it is. Like, I can't even imagine the chaos, because even the game I did was a Florida International Jacksonville State game in Miami. But then I didn't plan for it to be a torrential downpour. So
Yeah,
like, man, in the booth, like, damn, that sucks for that sideline reporter. But when you the sideline guy, you're like, man, stop raining. Like, so because I'm in this suit, you know what I'm saying? So
sure,
so you're dealing with all those elements. And but that was interesting of how you still locked into the game, but you just don't speak as much. That was an adjustment, knowing, okay, I ain't gonna talk a lot, but when I do, you better have something to say.
sure,
So it was cool to bring that part from the sideline up to the booth. And then in terms of the play-by-play, listen, I always envied the job you did. I leaned on you for pronunciations and having to now do that and call a game and make sure you're locked in. Greater appreciation for the job you do and the job other play-by-play guys do, because it is extremely difficult. But I love the challenge because I always want to find a new way to sharpen a new blade or create a new skill and work on a new skill. That's why I wanted, and I'll say this publicly, I want to give props to Ryan Clark, because I know people were giving him flack on social media for him hosting Get Up. Like, people see him hosting the Pivot and not realizing hosting a podcast, being a part of a panel as an analyst, to being a host where you have to drive the bus.
yep,
That's a different setup. You have different people in your ear. You're trying to make sure everybody gets their points in. You got to transition, all that stuff, right? And people are, oh, he stinks at this. He should never, like, no, he's learning a new skill. I applaud that, because I'm doing the same thing calling these European games. And that's good that he's getting that, getting that task done now and trying to cultivate a new skill set. And that's how you continue to grow in the industry. And plus, I'm calling football. So at the end of the day, if I felt like I was struggling doing play-by-play games, we're just going to turn this whole broadcast into a color commentary broadcast, which would be cool. You just break the mold and do something different. And that kind of helped ease me off the ledge. And like, man, I could kind of break the mold in how I want to do this. I can kind of be a mix of both, but I also want to learn how to do play-by-play,
sure.
just to say I've done it before, in case, worst case scenario, they say, hey, man, we got this opportunity to do an NFL game. Like, oh, finally, NFL game. I'm yes. Like, yeah, but you got to be play by play. Oh, no, I've never done that. I'm not going to, nah. So, I may suck at it, but at least I know I would suck less because I have this experience of me calling these European League of Football games.
Well, Emory, I'll say this, and you're just a couple years younger than me, so you remember two of the most famous play-by-play guys, kind of our era. Both Pat Summerall and Frank Gifford started as color commentators and moved their way over. So there's definitely precedent for it, maybe more in baseball, but again, it's there. And I'm so proud of everything you've done, where you've kind of come from, even since we met and before that. And I just hope more good things kind of come your way. And by the way, if anyone ever asks, tell them you know a guy who does some good play-by-play down in DC.
Say less. I'm always pumping you up, man. I'm always telling them, like, I'm always saying, like, hey, man, I know a guy that can do a great job. His name is Jeremy Huber. He works for SiriusXM. I was like, you probably heard him. He does I'm Jeremy Huber. I'm still saying that to this day to people. They be like,
A
oh
lot of
yeah, I
people
heard.
do.
It's funny, bro. Like, I you could never get away from that. Like, I always tell people, this is who you need to reach out to, and if you don't know him, you've heard of him, and I do your bit at the end.
Well, I guess you got the suits and everything else. I'm Jeremy Huber. That's a good thing. Emory Hunt, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Huber and Friends.